Welcome to Something More to Podcast, where we move through topics wherever the conversation takes us. I'm your host, Adam Culbertson.
And I'm Richard Collins.
Another history episode for you.
Maybe it's going to be our new thing.
Yeah,
who knows?
I don't know. Hey, maybe it'll be a first parter. Who knows?
Maybe, who knows?
So this time we're getting on the whole Civil War thing and the divide on the beliefs of how or what the Civil War was fought over. Because I grew up my entire life being told, don't listen to your teacher because the Civil War was fought over states' rights, not slavery.
Yes, the War of Northern Aggression.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I was a kid when I was told that, of course. I was told to not listen to my teachers. I actually lived in Illinois at the time whenever I really started learning about the Civil War for the first time and getting into detail with it. And living in Illinois, teachers fucking busted a nut for Abraham Lincoln. Especially
Honest Abe.
Especially history teachers. I mean, every year they go on a trip to visit the Lincoln's grave and like all the towns and everything. Like we went on that field trip, and it was a huge thing, and like the teacher couldn't shut up about it all year long leading up to it. Not that I don't have a problem with it. I think Abraham Lincoln was a great president. He helped with the abolishment of slavery and everything. He wasn't the original person to abolish slavery. I mean, that was in early 1800s, like 1810, something like that. I think whenever the first state
and I think not enough credit is given to people like Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass.
Yeah. And I did learn about that. But then I go home and like, well, I mean, listen to what they say so you can pass your test, but this is what really happened.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not trying to trash my parents, you know. I mean,
well, in a lot of cases, this kind of thing is just the kind of thing that gets handed down.
Yeah, it is. It's
really what they always heard all of their lives.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, it was long enough ago at this point that it could have been all that your great grandparents had heard all their lives.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, my family comes from the Southeast. I've spent most of my life in the Southeast. I'm in the Southeast now. And they're not the only ones I heard it from.
Right.
There's even teachers that will teach stuff. My wife explained to me that when she was in high school or middle school or something, her history teacher was teaching her about the Civil War and told her that it wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights, and it's just misinformation.
It is just misinformation. And you know, when it comes down to it, it's more appealing than the alternative. Yeah, so people are a lot more willing to believe it.
Yeah. If you pull up the Confederate Constitution and you read throughout it, these things that people say about it was fought over states' rights, not fought over slavery. Slavery had nothing to do with it. It's our heritage, that kind of shit. You just pull up the Constitution, look at it. Specifically 3 articles, or within 3 articles. There's Article 1, Section 9, Clause 4. It basically prohibits the Confederate government from restricting slavery in any way. And it actually reads, no bill of attainder. Is that right? Attainder?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like to me. No bill of attainder ex post facto law or law denying or impairing the right of property in Negro slaves shall be passed. Like, that's straight from the Confederate Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that alone by itself is okay. Well, so you're fighting over states' rights, but you're going to take away states' rights to abolish slavery. That's how I read that.
I mean, that's kind of what it sounds like. I mean, you don't want states to be able to decide for themselves whether or not they want slaves, do you?
Yeah, I mean that, but states' rights, right? It was fought over states' rights, so this all the Confederate states should have the freedom to decide for their own state what they consider legal and unlegal, and to be able to pass laws on their own without any interference from the big government.
Yeah, but not for slavery.
But yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, sarcasm.
slash S.
Yeah, /S. I mean, should I get into the next one?
Oh yeah. Keep going.
Okay, so Article 4, Section 2, it also prohibited states from interfering with slavery. So it reads, the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states, and shall have the right of transit and sojourn in any state of this confederacy with their slaves and other property, and the right of property in said slaves shall not be thereby impaired. So, I mean, it allows you to freely travel across state lines, and nobody can be like, oh, well, your states or your slaves are mine now, or your slaves are not allowed here, or anything like that. Whatever they want to deem, whatever. They can't say anything about anybody's slaves at all.
That their slaves would be recognized and protected by the government.
Yes. So, I mean...
And then there's one more really important one there.
Yes. And this is... Okay, so this is definitely the most menacing one of all. Not saying the others weren't, especially the first one there.
Oh no, those are bad enough.
Yes.
But...
So now we get into Article 4, Section 3, Clause 3. It offered to slavery in all future territories, conquered or acquired by the Confederacy, and it reads, again, it's Article 4, Section 3, Clause 3. The Confederate States may acquire new territory, and Congress shall have power to legislate and provide governments for the inhabitants of all territory belonging to the Confederate States, lying without the limits of the several states, and may permit them at such time and in such manner as it may be law as it may by law provide to form states to be admitted into the Confederacy. In all such territory, the institution of Negro slavery, as it now exists in the Confederate States, shall be recognized and protected by Congress and by the territorial government, and the inhabitants of the several Confederate States and territories shall have the right to take such territory, any slaves lawfully held by them in any of the states or territories of the Confederate States.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I mean, it's just, all I can say is, for people who weren't very concerned about the rights of slavery, they seemed really concerned about slavery being like a thing in their constitution.
Yes.
Like they seemed to make that to be a really, really big point, that it was totally okay and it's always going to be okay, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it because it will be okay forever anywhere.
Yeah. And you can't take it away.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like if these people had written the Declaration of Independence, it would have been the life, liberty, and pursuit of slavery.
Yeah. Yeah. But they like the way that our Constitution, the United States Constitution, is written, left it open for the abolishment of slavery.
Well, basically, it didn't mention slavery.
Well, yeah.
It didn't say anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was totally a thing back then, but Go figure. They didn't think that it was a thing that they should put in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Almost like they weren't trying to dictate the state's opinions.
Yeah. And so the United States Constitution wouldn't have to be changed or the wording changed or anything like that. Like they wanted, and I understand our founding fathers, some of them did have slaves. I don't agree that they should have slaves.
No, absolutely not. I mean, slavery is a horrible thing. I mean, whatever way you look at it, the entire country was founded on the idea of personal freedom.
Yes, that's
liberty.
what I was trying to say.
And to say, oh, well, it's personal liberty and freedom except for those people over there.
Yeah.
But they're not really people. They're like 3/5 of a person at best.
It's fucking sad. And it's sad that people defend the people that thought that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, saying it's your heritage and everything like that. Like I believe you've said it before on a previous episode or in a discussion that we've had. It might have even been in the test episodes that we ran on this. Like,
Maybe.
Okay, I understand it's your heritage. It's a shitty heritage.
Yeah.
I'm stealing your quote. But I give you credit. I give you credit. I mean, that's the best way to say it. And
yeah.
I mean, you hear, oh, well, not all slaves were treated bad. There were black slave owners too.
Well, and I mean, regardless of how people ended up there, because for the most part, slaves came about because one tribe in Africa conquered another tribe in Africa, took them as slaves, and ended up selling them to a bunch of white sailors that came over. Yeah. And that's kind of how the whole thing started in the first place. That doesn't make it right. No. That doesn't make it okay. That doesn't mean, oh, well, since it was black people putting them in slavery in the first place, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
But
and I mean, if you're... Go ahead.
It doesn't even matter how they got there in the first place. Like, it doesn't matter why they're slaves. That's still not right.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that if you're a descendant of a family that owns slaves, you're not a bad person.
Right. No, you're your own person.
Yeah, like it.
You aren't your ancestors.
Yeah.
I mean, and to be perfectly honest, I can kind of understand that when you exist in a culture that sees something like that as okay, it's easy to kind of have a blind eye to what's right.
Yeah.
Because this is always how it's been. And a lot of people, like, it's why we talk about it a lot. Like, you have to question things.
Yes.
You have to actually ask those hard questions. Because if you don't, you end up thinking slavery's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't believe everything you're told. Don't believe what we're saying. Go and look it up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We push that like that. If any of what we talk about that we want listeners on both sides of the aisle on beliefs, so whether you agree with us, don't agree with us. I think we only have listeners that probably agree with us, but I hope that we reach out to people that are closed-minded and will take our advice on actually looking into things. Look at things on both sides of the aisle. I don't just watch CNN or NBC or anything. I don't even actually watch them. I don't have cable.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't just watch Fox News or any other right wing news source out there. Yeah, the Drudge Report and all that kind of shit. I probably follow like 30 different news sources from far left to far right and down the middle.
I mean, it's crazy what the suggested articles are for me. Because you know how like Google always has like the here's what's going on in the news.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of insane, just like the gamut that these articles run.
Yeah.
Like it's like I'll get like multiple different articles on the same thing that have just greatly differing opinions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, and sometimes the article titles, and I mean we all know that articles are clickbait. Article titles are clickbait, and you need to actually read what's in it. I mean, some people just go off of titles and run with it, but I see I see everything before it becomes like the new coined term for conservative Republicans to say or nationalists to say and stuff like that. I see it in the news, and then I go on Reddit and I see it just being, it's basically like they copied pasted it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
you know, the internet loves some copy pasta.
Oh yeah. And it's just like those coined terms, like fucking like libtard is a fucking thing, and make America great again, and I'm trying to think of something like recently. Our mentally ill. Yeah. Like that whole thing that we've talked about before, getting our rights taken away and wanting to put us back in institutions and everything like that. That's been a big thing, saying that mental illness is the cause of gun violence in this country, when actually 4% of all violence in this country is attributable to mental illness as a whole. That's not just schizophrenia. That's schizophrenia, depression, bipolar disorder. Those are the top three.
Yeah.
But those are included with the rest of them.
Right.
4% of all violence, not just gun violence, all violence in this country is attributable to mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
Mental illness does not make somebody violent.
No.
Violent people are going to be violent.
Right. And mentally ill violent people are probably going to be more violent.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's not that they're violent because they're mentally ill.
Yeah.
They're violent because they're violent.
Yeah. Yeah. Like in a shooting right now, in like an extremist kind of shooting, like Al Qaeda has been the big fear, like since 9/11. You're more likely to be killed by a domestic right-wing terrorist than you are to be killed by an Al Qaeda right-wing terrorist, because
absolutely,
they are both right-wing terrorists. They're just from different countries.
Yeah. It's actually kind of crazy, like how similar they really are.
Yeah.
But kind of backtracking it back to
yes, I got off topic.
We do that. It's okay. We do that here.
Yeah.
But it's like kind of backtracking back to the whole like slavery Civil War thing again. I kind of logic this out a little bit before I kind of go through this again here. But if you really think about it, if you still have any doubts when you consider the whole like, oh, well, about states' rights or this or that and everything, like if you just logic through and go on this hypothetical journey with me. Like,
yeah, this is entertaining. Listen,
because when it comes down to it, like there's going to be a lot of things that I say here that are going to sound really awful.
This isn't his beliefs.
But just bear with me for a bit. But if you actually logic through the way that all of that's laid out in the Confederate Constitution, it's basically like saying that instead of saying, oh, well, it's impeding the states' rights to choose whether or not they want slaves. That's not what they're trying to do. What they're actually trying to do is it's about protecting the rights of those states that choose to have slaves. Because if you have slaves, like if slavery is a thing that you're wanting, you have, it is kind of an optional thing. You can't say no slaves and then some people have slaves and it'd be okay. But if you say slaves are okay, then some people cannot have slaves and it's still okay. So you're basically just saying that the states have a right to have slaves, and all of these laws are set up in such a way to protect those states' rights to have slaves. And even if they get new territories, those territories have to respect those states' rights to have slaves. Now, if you're wondering why I keep saying states' rights so much, because when it comes down to it, even if you logic it out that way, which seems more than likely the way that they actually thought about all of this at the time, it boils down to the fact that the states' rights they were talking about the whole time was the right to own slaves. So, yeah, it was totally about states' rights. States' rights to own slaves.
Yeah. And then they went out of their way to prohibit a law being passed to abolish slaves in a Confederate state.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because if they had the ability to abolish it, then you're neglecting the state's rights to own slaves.
Okay, so the Civil War was fought over states' rights to own slaves.
Absolutely.
It's not to not own slaves.
I mean, and thinking through it that way, it's the only way that I can make all of that make sense together. The only way that it could have been fought about states' rights, the only way that they could have written all of that within their constitution and still said, oh, well, it's about states' rights. Like, that is the only answer. That's the only way that those things all mesh together.
Yeah.
Is that they did all of this for the states' rights to be able to own slaves, and the entire Constitution was written in such a way to protect that right.
Yeah. Even taking away states' rights to write laws to take away slaves.
Because it was about protecting the states who want slaves to be able to still have slaves and take them wherever they want. And if they don't want to have slaves, that's fine. You don't have to have slaves.
Yeah, you don't have to have them. But
we'll be damned if you take away our rights to have them.
Yeah. Yeah. But
So,
I mean, you could say all that and that other coined term, fake news.
Mm-hmm.
History is a lot of history is considered fake by these people because, the victors write history.
Well, it's kind of sad because in a way, a lot of it is fake, but not all of what's fake is written by the victors.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of American history out there that you get taught in school that just isn't true.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the whole Christopher Columbus thing, which I was actually taught in school by. I actually had one really good history teacher my 8th grade year at Greenville, South Carolina, actually.
Oh, yeah?
He actually had a PhD, and he was teaching middle school because he was old as fuck and he just didn't want to teach college anymore. And he actually played us videos of very graphic videos of Columbus killing off natives on the islands and stuff.
Obviously, dramatizations, yeah?
Yeah, it was totally dramatizations, but it was like...
Either that or we do have time travelers.
Yes. yeah, dramatizations. It wasn't... You know what I mean.
Yeah, I got you.
But it was videos. It was actual video. God damn it. Yes. You know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying, yes.
But he even warned us. He's like, it can get graphic. It's not.
But things that were trying to portray things accurately and not the sugar-coated, nice and neat version that they like to teach you in schools all the time.
Yes. I mean, he even taught us about Pocahontas hated being a Native American and she wanted to be white. And the actual portraits of her that were done over in Europe, I guess in the UK, I think that's where she went. Because she married
John Rolfe.
Yeah. She had the artists, the painters, paint her as a white woman because she was ashamed of being Native American.
Yeah, which is a shame.
Yeah,
it really is.
And John Smith, the whole Pocahontas Disney movie thing, John Smith, of course, wasn't any kind of love interest there.
That movie was very romanticized and fictionalized.
Yes, and she was a minor at the time when John Smith came over.
Right.
But they were really good friends. They were really good friends.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that the one movie that's kind of based on history is really poorly based on history.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why Disney likes to stick to things that are more fictional and fairy tales and made up.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to worry about getting it right.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Although that being said, they don't even get those right half the time.
No. I like the original, like Grimm.
The Grimm fairy tales of the Hans Christian Andersen.
Yeah, but I'm into fucking horror shit like that anyways.
I'm telling you, fairy tales were not about happy fun times.
Yeah.
Like they were meant to scare kids straight.
Oh yeah. That's like some Dwight Schrute, some German tales there.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the entire point. It's like,
or Dutch, or whatever. Yeah,
well, you need to not go out in the woods by yourself, because if you do, there's something that's going to come out and tear out your guts and eat you whole. Like,
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stay home. I don't think I'll go out in the woods.
Yeah. Oh man.
So yeah, I guess we've kind of digressed a little bit again.
Yeah, it's easy for us to get off topic, but
it really is. The bottom line, the actual main thing that we're trying to focus on here is slavery is bad.
Yes, it is.
No matter what time period, how it came to be, when, where, whatever, slavery is bad.
Yeah.
And it goes against the entire ideal of this country. Mm-hmm. And to try and defend the actions of people who, even if it wasn't the soldiers, like I'm not going to say the soldiers, like the soldiers were just doing what they thought was the right thing, which, let's kind of circle this back a little bit to earlier things. That whole nationalism thing that we mentioned in the other episode about religion.
Yeah.
It's that same ideal. It's that sense of pride in the country, that sense of pride in this fledgling nation that you've broken off to make, that caused people to fight for things that they don't necessarily believe in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I joined the Army, and I didn't do it for loyalty to my country or like fighting for freedom or anything like that. I just needed a job. So I needed money.
So I guess really let's just call it what it is. The wealthy white assholes in charge of the South.
Yeah.
Like they did all of this to try and protect their right to own slaves so that they could continue doing things the way that they've always done it. And you should not celebrate them for doing that.
Yeah, and they got a lot of innocent people murdered.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if you want to go on technicalities, they murdered a bunch of innocent people on that were loyal to them.
If you're talking about like culpability, they murdered a bunch of people.
Yeah, and still lost.
Which is good.
Yes, it is good. It is very good. Yeah, it's
so sad. Yeah. No, I don't really have any respect for people still trying to defend that. Yeah. I mean, have pride in your community, have pride in your heritage. Don't have pride in slavery, and don't have pride over people who created a war just to try and keep slaves.
Yeah. I mean, I love my family. I try to teach them. I try. Mm-hmm. I try to help them change their mind. I don't try to force it on them. I don't or anything like that, but I do try to provide facts and just try to approach it with empathy, like in a way to where they can view it as empathy, like give scenarios and stuff like that, because some people will deny facts. People will just flat out ignore facts because it doesn't go with their belief system.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it's humankind, like the human brain developed to have a confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Like the brain always wants to be right, and it always wants to prove itself to be right.
Yeah.
And so if anything ever comes along that kind of conflicts with that idea, your brain's gut reaction is to be like, oh, well, that can't be right. Like, you must be lying. Or there must be some trick here. Or this must be some conspiracy. Like, there must be some other reason why you're saying this, because I know that can't be right.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like me being a schizophrenic, and I get in delusions and everything like that, I do avoid the news whenever I do get into delusions, because I don't want to feed my delusions. Right. I don't want to feed my paranoia. I know when I'm going into it, I put the phone down, and hell, sometimes I even put it in super power save mode, so I remove Chrome, so I'm not getting news like feeds or anything like that. And I feel like I am more sane than a lot of people in this country. And
I mean, if you just constantly read the news, I mean, yeah, that'll make you insane.
And since I've developed since it's been triggered schizophrenia with me, my hallucinations, everything like that, I have changed a lot of the way I think based on the amount of research that I do to validate reality.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, seriously, like 10 years ago, I completely believed that.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was told. That's what I grew up being told all the fucking time.
Right.
I was a Christian because I grew up getting that drilled into my head all the fucking time. Like crazy ass shit. Like beyond what even the Bible says, crazy shit. Like so many fucking crazy interpretations of Revelations. I have all that shit in my head.
Mm-hmm.
To the point I'm like, there's fucking signs. There's fucking signs. like, how the fuck can you support Trump? You taught me this shit. How are you not seeing it?
Right.
So, I mean, I have all that in my head. I don't believe that crap anymore. I think Trump is a despicable human being. And he is not a Christian leader like he's put on a pedestal to be. I mean, he even fucking said himself that he was the chosen one on fucking live TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told, oh, well, the Antichrist is going to come out and fucking say it on live TV, but the only true Jesus, when he returns, everybody in the world will see him. Like I'm like, God damn it. Like, I don't want to get into that. But but I feel like my schizophrenia has made me more sane and more intelligent. I don't know if that's a delusion. I think it's just the amount of research that I have to do.
It absolutely makes sense because you have to be more cognizant, more aware of what may or may not be real. Like you have to pay more attention to the details and more attention to every little thing to discern what's real and what's bullshit.
Yeah.
So I would say that that's absolutely reasonable to say that it's made you more sane and aware of what really is going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we'll end it there. We did get off topic a lot, but hey, that's that's our whole point. That's our whole deal. That's our shtick.
It's what we do.
But hope you learned something today. Don't believe what we say. Go out and fucking look at it yourself. I'm not being angry.
Look the stuff up. Like,
yeah, look shit up.
Like,
man.
it's not terribly difficult to find a copy of the Confederate Constitution.
Yeah, and if you don't trust one copy, pull up another copy and from a different source. Go to a fucking library. I'm sure they got it there.
Mm-hmm.
Another socialist program that we have in this country that
oh yeah, socialism bad.
Yes. Okay. But yeah, I hope you join us next time when we have something more to podcast.